Hi, I'm Jessie Budzinski. I'm an assistant department chair at Purdue Global, and I'm here today with Rebecca Binny, who is an adjunct instructor in our communication department. And she is going to share some of her experience in the communication field. So, Rebecca, if you don't mind starting by sharing your educational experience and then some of your work experience in the field.
Thank you, Jessie. It's really good to be part of Purdue Global. I was actually educated in Singapore. I was born and raised in Singapore. I finished my tertiary education in Singapore before coming here to actually form a startup that eventually, at a very young stage, got listed on the NASDAQ OTCBV, which is the Bulletin Board, the stock exchange.
Yep.
And then I did go back to school in America. And my entire education in America is online, exactly like what Purdue Global is. And I am very heavily focused on communication management. I got my master's at USC in communication management. I'm now actually doing a PhD in Switzerland.
Oh, wow.
Also in communication. And my hyper focus in my dissertation is really how we can use communication to better the underserved communities or the marginal communities, and spread diversity.
But amazing.
Yeah. That's the basis of my education. Yeah.
I mean, that's an incredible basis. And I wonder, I mean, I feel like you probably can really identify with our students since a lot of your education has been online.
Right. I think that the tricky part about communication in particular, as opposed to any other industry or any other field, is that it gets more complicated and harder when you're actually online.
Right.
And I think that has been what my interest has been, is how do we help students who cannot come to the classroom gain more from their online education, by implementing certain methods or tools that communicators can use to better the experience.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah. What parts of your experience in the field do you feel like have prepared you to be in the classroom and working with students?
I think being an actual mom, especially of two kids, running my own business. I have had a PR and marketing firm for about 20 years to date. And initially, what started out as a traditional 9-to-5 in-office environment, just from becoming a mother, I quickly had to pivot into a more online, fluid sort of schedule and system so that I could do what I want to do, raise my children, and still be able to meet the needs of my clients. So all of that combined, and then having to go to school my entire motherhood. So that, I think that gives a very different perspective from just teaching in the classroom or going to a classroom, or even working in an office. So that kind of gives me all my seminars, all my materials prepared so that without being face to face, I'm able to communicate what I need to for them to understand the class, and also for them to be able to communicate, in a good feedback loop, to make the experience, more substantial for the students.
Right. That's great insight. And I'm curious too, just because you're talking about all the things that you have and currently are juggling, what helps you with that? Because I think that's something that a lot of times our students are looking for advice about, because our students are doing the same thing. They're all adult learners juggling a bunch of different things. So how have you been able to navigate that?
I think time management is one of the most important things. A lot of times we think that we do have to do this list of stuff and there's 10, 15 things on it in a day. But I've always known that, and I've always been taught that if you just pick 3 every morning, and that's the 3 that makes a very big difference to your career and your education. Even in the class, like PR strategies that we're in right now, I tell the students, take the 5 minutes and do what has the most significant impact to your coursework. Because otherwise you can do a lot of stuff and spend hours, and it doesn't add to whether it's the grade or the experience. So you really want to be so focused, especially with juggling family and work and school, that in all those areas you manage your time so well That even if you fall short for the other 10 things, it doesn't have a very big lasting impact on your career, your education.
I love that. That is such great advice. And it's interesting that I have interviewed a lot of faculty and students, and no one has ever mentioned that. And I love that. I mean, that is just such a great, because it's easy to get overwhelmed by like this huge to-do list and to feel like you haven't accomplished anything if you don't get through it. But to have a more manageable goal is brilliant.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Absolutely. And I think starting slow is important. We have students who come in and they have 3 courses and then they end up having to drop a course. Right. Or they end up not being able to keep up with the coursework. And it's so important to understand yourself and protect your mental health and your well-being before you try to accomplish these grades and these tasks and assignments. Right. So yeah, if it's going to stress you out, it's just not worth it at all.
Yeah. Absolutely. What skills do you think are really important for communication students to be focusing on as they're working on their degree?
I think listening is the most important skill for a communicator. A lot of people listen to respond, whereas I think if we listen to understand or have empathy, right, that makes a big difference as a communicator. In the classroom, instead of listening, it's also reading. A lot of times instructions are there, feedback is there. Nobody really kind of hones in on what the message is or what the lesson is. So really, paying attention to what the signs are. And if it's not in person, then it's reading the notes, making sure we understand what's given or what's written so that we don't miscommunicate after that. Yeah.
Right. That's great. And what about, one of the things that students often have questions about, especially students who are kind of early on in the program, is being a little bit unsure about what they can do with a degree in communication. Are you able to just kind of highlight some of the benefits of a degree in communication?
Sure, yeah. So depending on which aspect, when I started my education in Singapore, I was in mass communication, which included film production, radio production, advertising, marketing, PR, journalism. So in that aspect, it gives you a very broad range. Whereas when you go really into communication alone, you're looking at a lot of marketing, public relations, advertising. So in the work field, it really transcends to either, you could work for an advertising or a PR agency. You could do digital marketing, which is the hype nowadays. But beyond that, a lot of communicators also can go into fields like HR, for example, because internal communications is a big aspect. Organizational communication is very needed. There are also crisis management teams where they really work on trying to salvage reputations of companies who are facing like tough situations. And then, of course, they could always do academia, research, teach, which is one of my favorites. So there is a broad range, really, of professions that communication students can branch into.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. What type of advice would you give to students as they're working on their degree?
Know yourself. I always say know yourself so well. Initially, it's like kind of like dipping your toes into the water and trying to experience or trying to learn what you can handle and what you like, but be so versatile to be able to pivot, because you want to, so a lot of times you start a degree and you think that's it, but midway you might feel that you're not meant for it, or there's something more interesting or fascinating, and you need to be able to pivot so quickly, whether it's to school, it's the course, it's your lifestyle, but be so fluid, because the versatility is what really carries you even through your careers. Just to be able to think on the fly, to be able to react to situations. And then don't be so hard on yourselves. The grading rubric is strict, but don't be so hard when you miss something.
That's a great one. I love that.
Yeah, that's hard.
It is hard. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you would want to share?
I think that I find my time at Purdue really enjoyable. We enjoy the seminars. A lot of my students know, like in week 1 and 2, everybody's really on the chat. And then after that, you can see them open up. And it's such a delight to communicate with the students. And, I'm helping a few of them trying to get their master's or what path they like to take. So I think that Purdue is a lot, not just to get your education, but to sort of find your path and gain the experience from people like yourself, Jesse, and all of the faculty who have the experience and the knowledge, to try to guide, right? Like gently nudge you guys along the way. So, feel free to always reach out. I'm happy to work with any of these students, whether they're from my course or not, and share. Communication is so important whether you go into the field or not. And a lot of my students do not necessarily want to take PR, for example, but we apply a lot of the lessons into their daily lives, into their careers, into them being parents. And you realize that, and communication is a very all-rounded, necessity for any career path. So, take any communication course, get the experience. It really helps in your career no matter what you do.
Oh, that's so great. That's such great words for us to end on. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jesse.